The story begins in a cabin in the woods, where we see a young boy escaping by breaking a window. He runs at full speed as a witch-like figure emerges from the house, grabs the gun the boy left behind, and licks a blood-stained glass. The boy, in panic, stumbles through the forest, hiding an envelope in his backpack while desperately searching for his weapon, which has disappeared. He is filled with fear when the witch's laughter cuts through the silence and a bright light shines down on him. That night, a police officer finds the boy and recognizes him as Ronnie Harlow. But he is in a trance-like state, just staring with a lifeless gaze and saying nothing. We then discover that the film takes place in 1997, on a small island called Martha's Vineyard. We meet a boy named Noah, who lives with his mother, Abby, and his younger sister. The family owns a beautiful beach house and rents out rooms during the summer. This morning, they meet a new tenant named Miss Halverson, who is oddly dressed in black from head to toe. Later, Noah meets an editor named Edgar and hands him a story about a stalker who has been spying on a local woman, but Edgar refuses to publish it, insisting that this is the safest place in the country where people come to relax in the summer, not to be scared. He acknowledges Noah's determination to continue his father's legacy, but advises him to write something lighter. Later, Noah wins a baseball game and returns home with his close friends, Eugene, Sammy, and Ben. On the way, they pass by the house of a mysterious man named Gene Carruthers. It turns out there have been disturbing rumors about him since 1965, when his wife and children disappeared without a trace. Noah believes the bodies are still buried on the property and wants to go in and investigate, hoping it will provide him with an exciting story for the newspaper. Hearing this, his friends get angry, as Noah always gets them into trouble, but they eventually decide to accompany him anyway. The children manage to get inside and notice Gene digging, which increases their suspicions. As the man moves away, they sneak into the barn, where Noah finds an old box, but before he can see what's inside, Gene returns and takes the box away. Suddenly, Noah remembers he left his backpack inside, but his friends insist he forgets about it before they all leave. Later that night, Ben arrives for his beach date and meets a young girl named Ellie, while a mysterious figure dressed in black watches them from a distance. The two begin to swim in the water when suddenly, an elderly woman warns them that it's dangerous for children to be out at sea so late at night. The woman begins to approach them and dives into the water just before Ellie is pulled in by her. Ben immediately dives to save her, but the woman grabs him and pulls him down. Soon, a blinding light bursts from the water, allowing Ellie to escape from the terrifying scene. The next morning, when Noah leaves the house, he finds his backpack outside, which also contains a book left by Gene. Noah then goes to find Ben, only to see his mother talking to a police officer about what happened the night before. The officer reassures her, explaining that Ben is fine because he's just going through post-traumatic stress after nearly drowning. This worries Noah, so he approaches his friend, but to his surprise, Ben doesn't respond. He just stares with a lifeless look, exactly like the boy at the beginning of the film. Later, Noah finds Ellie shaken and asks her what really happened the night before. She recounts everything about the old woman who grabbed them and also the blinding flash of light. She suspects that the woman was a witch, so Noah insists they must inform the police, but Ellie reveals that neither the authorities nor her parents believed her. Alarmed, Noah runs to the beach where he finds a piece of black cloth and notices Miss Halverson in the distance. Afterward, he arrives at Gene's house and thanks the old man for returning his backpack, apologizing for trespassing on his property, claiming they just got lost. However, Gene clearly doesn't believe him. Noah then discovers that Gene is a retired police officer and asks for his help in investigating the incident from the night before. He explains that a girl told him about an old witch who dragged her friend into the water. But Gene dismisses the story as nonsense and slams the door in his face. When Noah returns home, Abby hands him a tray of food and asks him to place it outside Miss Halverson's door without disturbing her. The boy goes to her room where he hears Miss Halverson reciting something. He then uses a knife under the door to peek, but soon realizes that the woman is looking directly at him, causing him to run away. Meanwhile, Gene is at home watching old footage of his life and his son, which makes him sad. He then decides to watch the news and soon comes across the report about Ben nearly drowning the night before, which worries him. The next day, during a baseball game, Noah becomes very agitated and gets into an argument with the umpire, who insults him. Just then, Gene arrives at the game and gives Noah some instructions on how to play. He also says he will talk to his friend, which leaves Noah hopeful. After the game, Noah takes Gene to see Ben, who is still in a trance-like state. When Gene asks what happened at the beach, Ben finally responds in a monotone voice that he was just pulled by the riptide. He mentions seeing the bright light, but says nothing about the old woman, so Gene dismisses it as irrelevant. An irritated Noah asserts that Ben is lying, but Gene argues that if he had been dragged underwater, there would be bruises or marks. That night, some teenagers are seen having a party on the beach, and a boy notices an attractive girl who also shows interest in him. She seduces him and leads him into the woods to a place called No Man's Land. The boy hesitates, as this place is a restricted area that was a bombing range in World War II. But the girl, who is actually the witch, ignores his words and takes him there anyway. Soon, the boy's terrified screams echo through the trees, followed by a huge explosion. The next morning, Noah watches the news about the explosion from the night before, and luckily, the boy, whose name is Kevin, only suffered minor injuries. But the most disturbing thing is that he is now changed and has the same lifeless look as Ben. Thus, Gene invites Noah to No Man's Land so they can investigate the events of the previous night. Gene starts inspecting the footprints while Noah carefully follows him. They soon arrive at the explosion site, and Noah is paralyzed in shock when he finds a small piece of black cloth, the same as what he found on the beach, along with a broom. Next, Noah meets Eugene and Sammy and shows them the items, proving that there is indeed a witch on the island. He did some research and discovered that witches need to feed on children to survive, otherwise they become weak and may even die. Witches can change their appearance to blend in with ordinary people and use spells to control their minds. Later, Noah introduces Gene to his friends, who are scared at first, but he explains that he is not a bad man and he is a retired detective. They then start discussing the witch, who made a mistake this time by accidentally causing an explosion. They explore several theories about how to kill witches, including shooting them with silver bullets. The kids are confused as to why a witch wouldn't eat children, but instead would turn them into brainless zombies and send them home. Here, Gene suggests that perhaps she has kidnapped children elsewhere, but people started to suspect, so she had to act subtly. He asks the kids to watch for anyone with burn marks, since the witch likely got injured during the explosion. That night, Noah notices Miss Halverson leaving her house, so he sneaks into her room and begins to snoop. At this point, he is shocked to find a list full of names and birth dates of various children, including his friends. A chill of fear runs down his spine as he finds several sketches of his little sister. The next day, Noah shares his suspicions with his friends and explains how everything started since Miss Halverson arrived in town. The kids decide to follow her with a camera to catch her in the act. Soon they see her entering a children's theater and assume she plans to abduct several children at once. Once inside, Noah sees Halverson about to touch a child, so he quickly pushes her, and they fall onto the stage in front of a large audience. Eugene hurriedly throws holy water on her, but it has no effect. Noah then tells everyone that this woman is a witch, but Miss Halverson insists that she is just a children's book author, and she is there to do a reading. He questions her about the children's drawings, and she claims they are mere references for her illustrations. Noah also mentions the chants in an unknown language, to which she responds, furious, explaining that she prays in Latin. After this humiliating incident, the enraged woman decides to leave the guest house, despite Abby begging for her forgiveness. Miss Halverson also demands the rest of the money she paid for the entire season. As soon as the woman leaves, Noah apologizes to his mother, but she, irritated, tells him to get out of her sight. Later, Noah arrives at Gene's house and shares what happened. Then the man warns him that a false accusation can ruin a person's life forever. Noah then reveals how much he misses his father, who was a journalist and used to travel the world seeking stories. But on his last assignment, he had an accident and tragically lost his life. Upon hearing this, Gene also shares about his son, who would now be 40 years old. When the boy was only 5, he was abducted by a man on a motorcycle right before his eyes. Gene tried to chase them, but he crashed into a tree, and they never found the child. His wife eventually left him, and for the past 30 years, he has been trying to find his son. Gene then shows Noah his investigation board and explains that his friend in the department provided him with a list of children who have disappeared from other cities. The next morning, Gene and Noah meet with the police chief and Edgar to explain that a predator is in the city. But Edgar does not want to scare anyone, and the police chief also says that every year, children almost drown in the sea or get into accidents in no man's land. Gene tries to explain the bizarre behavior that the children have been showing and points to other evidence, like the black cloth. When they still refuse to believe him, Noah speaks up and claims that a witch is behind it all, only to be met with laughter from the adults. Later, Noah meets up with his friends, but they also don't want to spend time with him because their parents think he is a bad influence. This leads frustrated Noah to go to the beach, where he tosses his research diary into the water. The next day, after a baseball game, Noah is on his way home when he notices Eugene's abandoned bicycle and backpack in the woods. He searches for him and soon finds Eugene in a state of panic. The boy reveals that something chased him there and points into the distance. Noah is horrified to see a figure shrouded in black cloth, warning him not to meddle where he does not belong. The two boys quickly flee the woods and reach their bicycles, and Eugene angrily tells Noah to stay away from him before running off. Frustrated, Noah checks his shoes and notices red seaweed. As Noah is heading home in the dark, a car suddenly appears out of nowhere and starts following him. He pedals as fast as he can and soon reaches Gene's house. Noah explains that a car was chasing him, but when Gene looks outside, there is no vehicle in sight. Next, Gene tells Noah about a town in New Hampshire where most of the children had previously disappeared. He also mentions Ronnie Harlow, who was the first child to reappear after going missing, and who also had the same lifeless gaze. Gene then decides to travel to New Hampshire that night to find Ronnie. The next day, Gene finds Ronnie and tries to start a conversation with him. The boy remains completely unresponsive, so Gene begins snooping and discovers a book about witches in his backpack. He then notices an envelope and inside it finds several photos of baseball teams, along with a key. Using the key, Gene opens a small box he found in the cupboard and reveals the witch's map, a collection of newspaper clippings and silver bullets. On the way back home, Gene suddenly stops and begins inspecting the witch's map and the photos he found. He realizes that the photos represent baseball teams from different cities and eras, but the bizarre thing is that they all have one thing in common: the same umpire. Elsewhere, Noah is in the middle of a baseball game when he glimpses red seaweed clinging to the umpire's shoes. Worse still, he notices a burn mark on the umpire's hand and realizes that the witch he has been searching for had been right in front of him all along. After the game, Noah meets up with Eugene and Sammy and tells them that the witch is none other than the umpire. Sammy thinks this is ridiculous, but Eugene, who has already had an encounter with the witch, believes his friend. He says he knows the umpire's address, and the trio decides to go there to confront him. Not long after, the kids arrive at the umpire's house, armed with a camera and a baseball bat. They sneak in while filming everything, and Noah is shocked to discover several fake identities belonging to the umpire. Eugene and Sammy, on the other hand, find several children's shoes, and then suddenly they are surprised by the witch. Soon after, the three boys wake up to find themselves tied up and gagged. The umpire then approaches them with 2 knives, claiming that he has been fasting for months and that his desires have become unbearable. He reprimands them for ruining his retirement plan and goes on to talk about how hard it is to be a witch, having to hunt and eat children while moving 3 to 4 times a year. But in Martha's Vineyard, he finally has an endless supply of children who come here every summer. He adds that drinking a child's youth does not fully satisfy his desires, so he will eat the trio now. The umpire decides that Noah will be the first to be devoured. Upon touching him, the witch reveals her true form and drags him away, while the boy tosses his lighter to his friends. The witch takes Noah to the kitchen to kill him, while Sammy and Eugene use the lighter to free themselves from their bonds. After accidentally setting the curtains on fire, Sammy disarms the witch with the baseball bat, while Eugene runs to help Noah get loose. And then, as the witch chases them, the witch is shot by Jean, but this does not affect her, and she quickly gets back up, so Jean switches all the bullets for silver bullets. When he shoots the witch, her soul begins to break free, proving that the silver bullet works, but the witch quickly recovers, and Jean urges the children to leave, saying he will handle the situation. The house is nearly on fire, but Noah refuses to leave and follows Jean down to the basement to help him. However, he is horrified when the witch suddenly throws Jean from a dark corner. Noah spots a weapon on the floor and rushes to grab it, but the witch throws it away. She then lifts Noah into the air and begins to suck the soul out of the young boy, but Jean shoots the witch and forces her to release Noah. The old man fires a series of shots, each one wounding the witch until all the trapped souls are freed. In the end, the evil witch finally dies, and the freed souls return to the children, where they belong. The scene then cuts to some time later, where we see Noah putting his heart into a story about Jean, hoping to clear the bad rumors about him in the town. He shows the story to Edgar, who is impressed and finally agrees to publish it. In the next scene, Noah goes to see Jean, who thanks him for the article, and they talk about how some of the children have returned to normal. Noah cannot help but worry about Ben, who remains the same, but the man asks him for patience. Days later, there is another baseball game, where Ben arrives to play, still in a catatonic state. But moments later, something amazing happens when his soul finally returns to him, and he becomes normal again. Ben now plays the game with renewed spirit, and finally wins. His friends are overjoyed with his return, and start cheering for him enthusiastically. To conclude the story, retired investigator Jean arrives to meet his ex-wife in hopes of rebuilding their relationship.